Hey there, VCE HHD students. My name is Andy. I'm a VC Health and Human Development teacher. In this short video, we're going to look at answering the 2023 VCE HHD exam question number 2. Before we dive into this video, I've been running a number of HHD exam revision lectures recently for ACE, and there's still 2 dates remaining if you're interested in attending one of these sessions to help you to prepare for the HHD exam this year. So there's a date available on the 12th of October, and then also a new session that's been added on the 27th of October if you're a bit more of a last-minute student. And so in each of these sessions, if you head to book.acevce.com and register, you'll get a link, and on the date, I'll be running through exam strategies and advice, including for the extended response question in the exam. So that's the 8 to 10 mark question. I'll go through the key content and the key skills you need to be across for the exam, and you'll get a comprehensive set of notes when you register that are posted to your house with free shipping. Also, you'll see that there are other subjects available such as English, biology, chemistry, psychology, and if you combine one of those with HHD, you'll get a bundle discount on the cost of your ticket. So as I said, there's 2 dates still available on the 12th of October and the 27th of October at book.acevce.com. So in this video here, we're looking at the 2023 HHD exam question number 2, and you'll see this question here was quite a short one. It's only worth 6 marks, and it had sections A and B. And so it started by talking about the mortality rate of Indigenous Australians being twice that of non-Indigenous Australians for injury and poisoning. And so A for 1 mark was asking you to describe mortality. So just an emphasis there on the importance of knowing your glossary terms for those different keywords or key terms that are part of the HHD study design, because often there are some pretty easy marks up for grabs for just descriptions in the exam. And then B was worth 5 marks, which is a little bit unusual in the HHD exam to see a 5-mark question, but it asks you to identify an environmental factor and a socio-cultural factor, and then explain how each could contribute to differences in mortality rates from injury or poisoning between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. So if you read this here, hopefully you'll recognize this as a Unit 3, Area Study 1, Populations Group type question. And whenever there's an identify aspect of the question, okay, that's often worth, okay, a small number of marks as part of the question. But it's important that you really make that identify aspect of your answer clear. So I would always sort of tell my students to make that sort of, okay, part of your answer really clear at the beginning. So you might start your answer by writing environmental dash housing, and then halfway through write sociocultural dash education. So make sure that you've got those factors really clearly identified so that those marks can easily be awarded. Obviously, then you're having to link whichever factors you've chosen into how they might contribute to this information provided here about Indigenous Australians being twice as likely as non-Indigenous Australians, okay, to have that higher mortality rate for injury and poisoning. So let's have a look at what the examiner's report said. So you can see here, okay, in relation to that description of mortality, that overwhelming majority of students were able to achieve a mark for that, so that's quite good. But then when it comes to 2B, okay, only around 16% of students were able to achieve 5 marks. And so they gave you some examples of different environmental factors and also sociocultural factors that you might have identified in your answer. And then they went on to say that most students were able to do the identify aspect, but many could not make meaningful links from their selected factors to the differences in mortality for injuries and or poisonings between Indigenous and non-Indigenous Australians. And so it mentions here that if a question indicates students must link to a specific variation in health status between 2 groups, it's important that both groups are included in the response to show a comparison. Then the answer links back to the variation specified in the question. So if we go back, okay, to the information that was provided at the start of the question, they're talking about the fact that you had to clearly link back here that Indigenous Australians were 2 times as likely as non-Indigenous, okay, to have that mortality rate for injury and poisoning. So you need to make that clear as part of your answer. So you can see they provided a high scoring response sample as part of the examiner's report. So the factor they chose for environmental factors were working conditions and for sociocultural social exclusion. I tend to try to talk to my students about having a pretty specific structure when it comes to answering these questions, because I think that your first sentence should typically, okay, mention both of the groups that you're focusing on and comparing this particular factor for those groups. So if I was advising my students, I'd be saying something along the lines of, in the first sentence, you should be talking about Indigenous Australians being more likely to work, in conditions that are more dangerous compared to non-Indigenous Australians. So you're taking that factor and you're comparing Indigenous versus non-Indigenous. And then in the second sentence, you have to obviously link that, into the particular variation in health status. And in this case, we're talking about either higher mortality rates of injury or poisoning. So you can see here, this student in the second sentence said, as a result, they might be more likely to put themselves to work in dangerous working conditions to earn an income, which might contribute to higher mortality rates due to injury among Indigenous compared to non-Indigenous Australians. So once again, you can see there they've mentioned both of the groups there in their sort of second sentence, but I'd probably recommend that you try and do that in the first sentence just to make it really clear how that factor is different for the two groups you're focusing on. And so then the same for your sociocultural factor structure could be the first sentence is looking at the difference in this factor. So maybe Indigenous Australians are more likely to experience social exclusion compared to non-Indigenous Australians. And then how can that impact, on their variation in health status? So the student here then talked about that could severely affect mental health negatively and lead to substance abuse, such as alcohol abuse, and overconsumption of alcohol could lead to alcohol poisoning and therefore increase the mortality rate due to alcohol poisoning for Indigenous compared to non-Indigenous Australians. So this is something that you can, practice for a lot of the different population groups to go and look at different factors, think about how you might compare them for the different population groups and link them back to variations in health status. And it's a super common exam question, so this is definitely something that I'd go back and practice. Hopefully you found that useful. We have, at the Health Resources Hub, created a 2023 HHD exam suggested sample answer document. So if you're wanting some more sample answers for the exam in 2023, as well as some considerations to think about when it comes to these questions, you might want to touch base with your teacher about accessing those. Also, if you're finding that extended response questions are something that you're finding challenging as you complete trial exams, so these are those 8 to 10 mark questions, and there'll definitely be one in the HHD exam this year. I'm running a session on October 10th, so soon, from 5 till 6:15 p.m. online, where we're going to go through, how you can break down the different sources and the question and think about structuring a response to these questions. So these questions are typically the most challenging and low scoring for students. So if you're able to, answer these questions quite well, it gives you an opportunity to have an edge over other students. So if you head to this try booking link here or just our website, the hrh.net.au, you'll see there's a link there to head to the try booking page to register. When you register on the same day, you'll get sent to practice extended response questions to complete prior to the session, because I'll be going through the answers to those online and how to break down the sources and the question and structure a response. We'll also go through a PDF with advice on these things that I was just mentioning, and you'll get sent that after the session to help you think about how you can use that with other extended response questions. And you'll also get 5 additional extended response questions to practice in the lead up to the HHD exam. So that's on October the 10th from 5 to 6:15 p.m. Finally, if you're on YouTube, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel with the button in the bottom corner of the video there. There'll be new videos coming out in the lead up to the HHD exam this year. There's also obviously over 190 videos already available there, with lots of those focusing on exam preparation. So you might want to go and have a look through our back catalogue. Also got our website where there's opportunities for teachers and students, our social media links, and also our email if you'd like to get in touch. Thanks so much.